All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I got a brand new video for y'all today, and I want to start off really quickly with a quick clip that we have of Poilievre. He's actually speaking live right now as I'm recording this. I just stumbled across it, so let's watch it and let's react to it live.
Against the interests of the Canadian people. And we know Carney will sell out Canada for his personal profit. He's already done it. He's systematically done it his entire time as a corporate insider. Giving Liberals a fourth term will not change any of that. Carney puts himself first. Conservatives will put Canada first. Putting Canada first means cutting bureaucracy.
Just really quickly, I'm going to show some poll numbers after this. So I'm not going to watch the entire thing, but we're going to watch a bit of it.
Tax cut. Lowering tax rates on work, investment, energy, and home building. It means axing the carbon tax for real, for good, for everyone, forever. It means repealing the Liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69 and instead granting rapid permission to our companies to build more pipelines, more natural gas exports, more data centers, mines, and other natural resources to bring home powerful paychecks and production to our people. We need an east-west pipeline, and we need to say it in both French and English. Nous avons besoin d'une pipeline d'un océan.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of interprovincial affairs that he's going to be dealing with.
Il faut le dire sans équivoque. Pour briser notre dépendance sur les Américains, we need to break our dependence on the Americans by building east-west.
I agree on that.
We need more interprovincial trade. We need to unleash our free enterprise system to reverse the helplessness that the Liberals have caused over the last 10 years of tax and keep it in the ground extremism. More than anything, we need to bring back the Canadian promise.
That was weird.
In a country where we trade with each other, we produce our own resources, we build homes for our people, we protect our weak and vulnerable while standing up to the Americans abroad. The Canadian promise is that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home, on a safe street,
big tone shift there.
Protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud flag. Canada, let's bring it home.
Mr. Poilievre,
okay, let's watch one question.
Diplomatic experience do you have to go up against Donald Trump?
Oh, quite a lot, actually. So I was the Minister of Jobs and Housing in the Harper government, during which time housing cost half as much as it does today. I helped Mr. Harper cut the GST, cut income tax, cut business tax, and balance the budget. Over my time in Parliament, I've been scrutinizing and studying the books on the Public Accounts Committee, the Operations Committee, the Finance Committee. And if you want any proof that my economic ideas are the best, the Liberals are all trying to pretend that they're copying them right before the election. All the big economic questions of the last 5 years.
Oh my God.
Mark Carney has been wrong and exactly wrong, and I have been right. I said 5 years ago the money printing would cause inflation. He said deflation was on the horizon. I turned out to be right. I said the carbon tax would drive up food prices, and it did. Drove them up 37% faster in Canada.
It's not necessarily true, but okay.
I was the first parliamentarian to predict that we would have the inflation crisis, while Carney, Freeland, Trudeau, and others were saying that we would not.
Okay.
I was the first one to be...
Anyways, he's just going on and on. He's just trying to talk about his accomplishments, at least, or at least his virtue signaling, I should say, in some respects. Because the fact of the matter is, I think the way that he responded to that question was pretty bad. And I'll put it this way. Talking about, your housing costs, the housing prices being half the price, and, cutting the GST, cutting income tax. Pierre, you were one vote. You're one vote in that. That's not like, and by the way, those were not permanent cuts, by the way. So let's make that very clear. They didn't permanently cut income taxes. They didn't permanently cut the GST. They didn't permanently cut anything. So, I think that's a sort of a weird response. And I think, again, it's official, guys, by the way, that Mark Carney is going to be the Liberal leader because we have it right here. So Liberal leadership race, Mark Carney elected landslide to be next Prime Minister of Canada. Yeah, so he won with 86% of the vote, 85.9%. That's a landslide. That's very, ridiculous. And I think Pierre Poilievre won with, let me see how much he won with. I think it was close to 80%, or it might have been a bit above. Oh, my bad. No, it was actually 70%. So, based on this, I mean, technically speaking, Mark Carney does have a stronger base within the Liberal Party, if you are to really consider that. Because take a look at this. Leslyn Lewis she's a bit more to the right up here, so that's one faction they have to deal with. Then you have Jean Charest, who is a bit to the left of Pierre Poilievre, so again, that's another faction. And then Baber, Bobber, I don't know how you say his name. I don't know really what he is, to be honest with you. He's not really relevant. But this is like 22%, 23% of your base that you need to keep in check. And if 23% of your base is on one side and then on the other side, it's going to be hard to keep them in control. So many of these Leslyn Lewis people, maybe they'll end up voting for, I don't know, Maxime Bernier. Who knows? And then these Jean Charest people, I think they're more inclined to vote for Mark Carney than the Leslyn Lewis people are to vote for Maxime Bernier. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out in the election time. But I do want to talk about some numbers. So we have some brand new numbers, 338 Canada. I know I cover these guys all the time, but I have to cover them again because they do have some new numbers. So 156 to 143. This was posted yesterday. This is before Carney was announced as a leader. So keep that in mind. And what happens is, we've seen this many times before. When a new leader is officially announced, their numbers are going to go up. So Mark Carney is probably going to go up in the polls. He'll probably get boosted by 2 or 3 points. I don't know how that'll play out in terms of the aggregate, but if I were to be honest, I think I would assume that the Liberals would continue to go up just based on that. Now I want to break it down really quickly by region. So BC is one big one I want to talk about in a second. But first I want to talk about Ontario. Ontario is dead tied between the Liberals and the Conservatives. I don't know if you guys remember, but at one point we were talking about the Conservatives potentially winning 100 seats in Ontario, which would have been ridiculous. We're now tied. We're now tied at 59. So I don't really know what to make of it completely. Again, if you take a look at the map, I don't know if it'll show the map for Ontario, but we could take a look at that after. But a lot of the seats for the Liberals are concentrated in the GTA, obviously, as expected. I also do believe that some of those ridings are going to be in the Windsor area, maybe even Hamilton. Ottawa is also starting to go redder and redder. And then Quebec obviously is very red. They've pretty much taken control of Quebec, which is shocking considering the fact that Mark Carney's French is not great. And then obviously Atlantic Canada typically votes Liberal, but they were trending towards the Conservatives for whatever reason when Justin Trudeau was in power, but now they're going back to red. Take a look at this. Newfoundland, 7 seats. PEI, 4. Nova Scotia, 8. New Brunswick, 6. Okay, now BC. So BC is a very interesting one. So I don't know if I could take a look at the specific region breakdown. I'm going to try to find it right here. Map. So if we take a look at BC, and I'm not really well versed in BC politics, to be honest with you. I don't live in BC or anything like that. But those that do live in BC, I'm actually curious to know what you guys think about this, because the Liberals were pretty much decimated in BC. Okay, I don't know why this is not loading. Anyways, it's fine. We could just take a look at the numbers. So it's 23 to 14. Again, it was about 40 something for the Conservatives at one point. We're talking about 40 some odd seats for the Conservatives, which is pretty shocking. I also do want to note that the NDP has actually gone up as well in seats. So they would retain party status and get 2 more on top of that. I think they made some gains in Ontario, obviously Manitoba as well. And then they make, this Alberta one, I think it's Carney's, or it might be that other guy, George Chahal, or whatever his name is, from Calgary. But again, the Liberals are starting to take control in these areas. I don't know if that means that they're going to win, but then again, look at the margin, guys. It's only 13 seats. This is the closest we've ever been in the last 3 years, 4 years. It's ridiculous. Now take a look at this, guys. So the polling numbers, we don't have any new ones since the last time we covered this, but I do want to note that this is still a trend that we're seeing right now. So last week, it was 39 to 33. I want to go back to when Trudeau resigned. So Trudeau resigned on January 6th, and that was 45 to 20 that day. Well, this is the day before. But nonetheless, it was about 25 points. We're now at 6 points. That's a very big, big difference. And look at what 30 Canada did. So they put the new Liberal Party leader, they put this little ticker just to show you guys I do expect and I do anticipate, I think it's a fair assumption to make, that the Liberals will shoot up in the polls. They will probably be at around 35, 36 in the aggregate, and the Conservatives may actually go down to 37 or 38. Now, if it ends up becoming 37 to like 34 or 37 to 35, that changes everything in terms of the map. That changes everything. Now, I do want to go here back again just to show you guys how crazy this change has been over the last few months and few years, frankly. So take a look right here. So this is very interesting. I did see this yesterday. I actually did take a look at these numbers yesterday. So 338 Canada has this thing with odds of winning the most seats and then odds of outcome, which we're going to talk about in a second. But interesting to note that although the Conservatives have dropped in terms of their seat count this week compared to last week, they were at about 160 last week, they are still expected to win the most seats, and they've actually shot up in the amount that they are projected to win the most seats. They've shot up in their odds. So that is kind of interesting. If there's anybody that knows why that's the case, please let me know. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but I think it's interesting to note that they went down in seat counts, but they still went up in terms of their odds of winning the most seats. So I don't know how they calculate this, which is weird that they put it like this. But anyways, you would expect that it would be the opposite. But anyways, odds of outcome. This is even a bigger one. So this is one that we've been looking at, and we've been like, just brush it aside. Hey, it's not that big of a deal, because frankly, it was pretty much 99% chance the Conservatives win a majority for the last 2 years or 3 years. Look what happened now. So we now have the Conservatives majority at 32% chance, which is basically 1 in 3 chance. The Liberals winning a plurality, so that would be just a minority, just the most seats. That's about 32%. And then a Conservative plurality would be 34%, which again has not changed. But the Liberals have gone down in terms of their odds of winning a plurality. So it's very weird. It's very weird. These numbers are getting really odd and funky, and it's all over the place. But anyways, this is something I want to talk about. So I'm not too worried about coalitions because I don't think it's going to happen. But then again, you never know what will happen. You never know. We've seen some strange things happen, man. And I will say one thing. If the Liberals do end up going into coalition, if they do form a coalition with the Bloc, they will form government. They will form government. And so what happens is, I know it says 171, but they would essentially have 172 because they'd probably end up winning more seats based on that. It would be very interesting to see that. I don't think it'll happen, but just take a look at these numbers. There is a possibility that the Liberals do end up winning majority if they are to form a coalition with another party. Most likely the Bloc would be their best bet. Now, if they do it with the NDP, they're at about 157. So that's not great for them, but they're still in the race. And I do think it's worth noting, it says 157. I think it's worth noting that would sort of mess with everything here. Because then you see it would be 157 to 156. I don't know how the Conservative seats would react to that. I don't know how that would work out. So it would be interesting to see how that works out. Now, again, polling numbers have stayed the same from the last 2 weeks. So Conservatives did see a slight boost, maybe like a 0.5 or something. But they've been at about the same at 39 to 33. So still a 6-point gap. Now, this is the biggest one. So I know we've been covering this for a long time. And we've been looking at these numbers, and we're talking about 238, 236. We're talking ridiculous numbers at one point. We're now sort of grounded in reality. I would say this is not even reality. This is kind of crazy that this even happened. Now we're at 236 or this was at 236 to 35. This is the day that Justin Trudeau resigned. The day before he resigned, it was 236 to 35. That's a 201 seat gap. The most that the Conservatives were at was about 238 to 41. So again, it was about 197 seats. I don't know if that's the right math, but it was a lot of seats that they had between each other. And then we saw, talk of Carney moving in, because this is the week that Carney announced that he would run. And then we saw this plunge for the Conservatives and this surge for the Liberals. Week over week, they just kept going up, the Liberals, and the Conservatives kept going down. Last week, it was at 160 to 139, which is a 21-point gap, or 21 seat gap. And now we're at 156 to 143. So the Liberals have gone up by 4. Conservatives have gone down by 4. So that means that the Liberals basically took all their seats from the Conservatives. I don't know if that was completely the case, obviously, because the Bloc also lost some seats. But nonetheless, we do see that it's starting to slow down. However, I do want to make this clear. This can only continue to get worse for the Conservatives. There is no best case scenario for the Conservatives at this point, except that they form government. I don't think there's, we're talking about majority, we're talking about super majorities, we're talking about 270 seats at one point. Some people are saying 270 seats. That's not going to happen. And if you want to blame anyone, blame Donald Trump. Blame Donald Trump, but also blame the advisors that Pierre Poilievre has, because frankly, they haven't been able to pivot quick enough. I mean, they have been stuck on the whole carbon tax Carney and, Brookfield moving their headquarters. Nobody cares about that. The average Canadian voter does not care about that. So pivot away from it, and then you will see your numbers potentially stabilize. But at the same token, the honeymoon period with Carney, assuming it does start soon, I don't know when it'll start immediately in the polls and when it'll be reflected in the polls, but if he does announce an election within the next week or within the next 2 weeks, that honeymoon period is going to be key for him to cash in on, because if he sees his polls going up, if he's at about 35 or 36, why would he not call an election? That's just my question to everybody that's out there. And I know Conservatives have been talking about having an election for a long time. I think we should do it. I think it's mutually beneficial if we call an election right now. I think you get to pick your leader, who is Pierre Poilievre, if you're Conservative, and you get to finally voice your concerns and finally cast a vote for it's been 4 years. I mean, with Justin Trudeau in the last election, you could finally say, hey, this is where I want the country to go. If you're a Liberal, you finally have the chance to vote in someone other than Justin Trudeau, because Justin Trudeau was the problem for the Liberals. So again, I think it's interesting to see that these numbers have been shifting quite a bit. Now again, this is very weird. I don't know what's going on. These numbers are very funky and weird. Last week, we were at 62% chance that the Conservatives win the most seats, and the Liberals were at 37. This week, it's now 66 to 33, so they've gone down. I don't know how that makes any sense, because they did, in fact, go up in the seat counts. I'm referring to the Liberals, so it's very weird. It's very weird. It may be basing it on future projections. I'm not sure. But then again, here, plurality was about, last week, it was actually 35% chance the Liberals will win a plurality. So that's weird. The Liberals were the most likely to win a plurality last week, and then this week they go down and the Conservatives go back up. It's very weird. It's very odd. And this is also keeping in mind that the Liberals were down in the seat counts last week. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I also want to show this really quickly. Poilievre, I think I already showed you guys 162, 136. So again, these numbers are being corroborated. But anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about Mark Carney? What do you think about this race? I mean, Poilievre versus Carney is going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a crazy one, I think. And when the election period does start, when the election campaign does start, it'll probably start within, I don't know, the next month. I will be making a video every single day, so stay tuned for that. We're going to cover polls. We're going to cover ads, analysis. We're going to analyze everything. We're going to talk about everything that's going on, because this is getting very, very interesting. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one.